Everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be book recommendations, but based on tropes I usually don't like. But these are exceptions, in my opinion. There are some tropes that I feel like I will never find an exception for. For example, miscommunication. I will never not resent a whole book based on miscommunication, or if the story for the main male character starts whenever like a female character in his life is like sexually assaulted or murdered. I'm never gonna like this. But for these, I was able to find some exceptions, often just one, but I wanted to mention them because it might also work for you. Also, feel free to leave in the comment section any of your most hated tropes so I can do a part 2 maybe with some recommendations if you're willing to give it one more shot. So let's get to it. Special thank you to Melanote for sponsoring this video. They have an app, a website that you can use to organize your ideas and projects visually on visual boards, which is so useful. I'm a very visual person. I need to see things because I can't just think about it. I'm also a big fan of lists, and the website is just perfect for this. The whole thing that I'm going to be sharing with you by sharing my screen, you're going to see this is all from the free version, so you can do the exact same thing. Let me show you my screen. So you have my two main boards, for example, video ideas. So if I click on August, you can see I made this little board. You can use their pre-made ones, which are very, very useful to get going. So you can see August videos. We have the whole cottagecore vibe in the picture that I chose. I put a few reminders, so the two books that we're hoping to read with the book club. I say hoping because Crime and Punishment bested me. I completely fell with this one, but we do have Parable of Talents also that I will definitely be reading. I also put a little reminder that Babel is coming out at the end of the month. I need to keep that in mind because I am very excited for it. And I organized a little mini board for my upload schedule, which should I show you? We might as well, we're here. So this is my upload schedule for the month of August. I can actually even add the color. There you go. Oh, this is so much better. There you go. So you can see, you can change the color, can organize, can make yourself some list, which again, I love a good list. So this will already be up when you see it. So I can click that, and this is the video we're doing right now. So we can click that and you get to see a sneak peek of what's coming up. But what I like is that I can put a list, little note, and start listing. For example, video that's coming up is short book recommendations. So I can just add that, and then I can start listing them. So for example, I'll be mentioning Emergency Skin by N.K. Jemisin because yes, and there's also the Monk and Robot series by Becky Chambers, of course. So I can do like the whole list like this, and afterwards I can just add a little line. Let me drag this here. And then I can just keep it organized like this. That way I can organize exactly the content for each video. That way everything is organized together. Again, I'm a visual person. I really think this is super satisfying. And if we go back, I also started one for September because it's approaching very fast. You can see the fall vibes. I chose the perfect picture, I feel like, for this. Actually, let me change the color because this isn't the right color. It's too peachy. We want something more orangey, right? Let's go with... Oh, that's better. So I started my September schedule. I'm not going to show you. Come on. I can't show you everything. And I can put the reminders. Again, let's do this. Reminders. The book that we are reading, the next classic for the next 2 months, we're reading Sense and Sensibility. I can even put a little, I can even put a due date if I want to, but we're not trying to stress me out here. So I'm not going to show you the rest because, of course, keeping a few things private. Let's go back to the house renovation because I have been having a lot of fun with that specific board. I'm hoping to redecorate my whole house, right? We're doing room by room, and I obviously chose as a picture the Practical Magic picture because I can. Let's click on my house library. Look at this. Oh, this is so satisfying. Okay, so we have the inspiration picture. I also did like a 3D rendering and decided to add it there. You can obviously add caption to all of them. There you go. 7 bookshelves because that's what we're going for now. So you can organize all of your pictures together. I also decided the vibes, which again, I need to perfect my color skills here. There you go. Oh, this is perfect. So the vibes that we're going for is dark academia, moody, witchy, kind of Pride and Prejudice. And I made myself a little color palette because again, I'm very visual. I was struggling to figure out what color I wanted for my reading chair. And The color I chose for the walls is this one, which I think is absolutely perfect. And the furniture that I have currently is this color. So the reading chair, all I knew is that I absolutely wanted one that was velvet. And you can see in spool picture right here, the cat is definitely not optional. But this is the current one that I'm looking at. It looks really, really pretty. I did a little to-do list so I can keep up with everything that needs to be done. Very cute and aesthetic to put in the background of my cabinet. So we'll see how that looks like. Again, the Pride and Prejudice vibes. I like older looking landscape and the bust. I don't know if I'm going to really get the bust, but I think it's really fun to have it there as inspo. I also put the little link if I decide to get it from Etsy. So you can just organize all your ideas together that way. So we'll be linking Melanote down below in the description box if you are interested. Definitely check them out. By the way, I will be attempting to keep this video completely spoiler free. The tropes that I feel like is a spoiler, I will announce the book beforehand. That way you can just skip it if you don't want to know. So I wanted to go with the not like the girl, everyone hates me kind of trope because I hate that one so much. It's super common in YA books. I do feel like it's because at that age you're often very angsty and it's the kind of feelings that you might have. But it's very frustrating to read, maybe it's just as an adult, although even as a kid, sometimes I remember not being a fan of the trope. But Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. I feel like Brandon Sanderson would be able to switch up any trope and make it work, I feel like. Right. And this one makes a lot of sense because you follow main character and her father brought shame to her family. He died while being a coward, which is the worst thing you can be in their society. It's like remnant of humanity on a planet. They're constantly under attack from aliens, and he just tried to run away during a fight. And she's convinced that there must be a reason, it must be a whole lie. And she spends her whole life trying to, well, her whole life, she's still very young, but she spends her whole childhood being bullied and dreaming to become a pilot also so she can, you know, fix things. So I feel like it makes a lot of sense that she would be that angsty and that she would be feeling not like other girls. So I feel like it works out. I did enjoy the sense of humor, even though it's very YA and edgy, especially like whenever it's between her and Mbot, a smart spaceship. So I think this is my exception for me. I do think it makes a lot of sense in the context. Generally, still not a fan of that trope, but I think this works out really well. You know what? If we're doing Not Like the Girl edgy humor, I think we should also be doing Not Like the Boys, which very much focus once again on the whole edgy sense of humor. I feel like, especially even in adult books, it makes me feel like I'm just not the target audience. Think a lot of like dick jokes. For example, I recently read Kings of the Wild, and the sense of humor just didn't end up working for me. But one time that it did work for me is The Martian, which is like such a classic. It's super popular, but I think the main complaint I've heard about this book is the sense of humor being too edgy. So it will not work for everyone, but in my case, this totally worked. I do want to put a little asterisk that the main character seems to be the same one in every book the author writes. And it works whenever it's a male character. It didn't work in Artemis whenever it was Jazz. Complete failed. But Mark Watney being like this makes complete sense. He was also, you know, keeping himself entertained, trying to survive on Mars alone. So I'm allowing it. In this case, it did work for me. Doesn't happen often, but with this one, we're allowing it. Let's go with another classic. There's quite a few classics, I feel like, in this video, but I am usually not a fan of the whole Amnesia kind of thing. It's very common in mystery thrillers with like a lot of these tropes, right? Coma. It reminds me of like so many K-dramas where people get hit always by a white van and they just don't remember, right? So Amnesia in general, not a fan of it. I feel like it's like a cop-out very often, kind of feels a bit lazy. But Hunger Games, come on, that totally worked for me. Loved it. We're gonna discuss spoiler, but I feel like it's been out so long. Does it still count? Probably, but let's talk about it. I love Peeta. He's my favorite character by far. Dear Dude can choke. But Peeta not remembering Katniss, as a kid when I read this, it broke me. It broke me. But even rewatching the movies as an adult, I love it. It works. Like the whole like angsty drama, making her finally realize that she actually does care for him. It just works really well. Would it be the same if it was an adult book? Maybe not. But in a way, yes. Yes, it works. Still not a fan of the trope, but this time we're allowing it. Another really hated trope, I feel like, although it's not my most hated one, I completely understand that has been done a ton, and it's the whole like chosen one slash farm boy, especially if they are an orphan. It is something that has been done a million times. If it were published in 2022, probably would feel a little dated, but because it is such a classic adult fantasy, it doesn't bother me. So the first book in The Wheel of Time, The Eye of the World, I read this pretty recently, so if it were to bother me, it would have, you know? But it just feels like it's 32-year-old, like it was published in 1990. So like, it makes sense that at the time it was really common. The main character could be the chosen one, or it could be one of his friends. He's definitely a farm boy, and he learns really early in the book, it's not spoilered, that he may have been adopted. Who's his real family? So yes, very, very cliche, but because it's such an epic fantasy series, I think it works. I have definitely mentioned quite a few times that I am not a fan of mystery and thrillers whenever they have too many twists, because I feel like we got to a certain point where it felt like authors were just trying to get one that you didn't see coming, which, like, yeah, if you have like 10 twists and it becomes a completely different story, of course I'm not going to see it coming. With that said, The Kind Worth Killing, so many twists, but it works out. And in my opinion, it's one of the best mystery thrillers I have read in the last like 6 years. So I wanted to give it a little shout out. I do think it's worth the read. The premise is really interesting in the beginning too. You have this woman who meets a man in the bar at an airport, and they kind of start planning the murder of his wife. So I would recommend this one if you haven't read it. It's my favorite by the author also. So this one time, it works. This one is a little funny, but I wanted to include it because I've mentioned so many times how much I really resent unnecessary romances, because I feel like authors just add this to add more pages, or like they just were trying. I'm thinking recently I read Dead Silence, which is a horror sci-fi, and there's very much so an unnecessary romance. I feel like the book didn't need it, but this one time, even though I'm calling it unnecessary, this one time it worked, and it is The Sparrow. Right? If you have read it, let me know if you agree or not. But this is First Contact with Alien, with one of the best premise ever. Humanity hears music, sound coming from a different planet, and decide to send a team. But because, you know, bureaucracy, it takes forever to send a team. But who has the means to send a team really quickly? Organized religions. So we have a team of Society of Jesus. So like priests, like half the team consists of priests that are sent to make contact with aliens, and there's a romance that happens. Kinda. It could be called unnecessary, but you know what? It totally works out. One thing that is really interesting with this book is that there's a few different timelines, and in the present time, there's only one survivor that came back, a priest, and he refuses to tell anyone what happened. So good. Multiple trigger warnings. Look them up if you have any, because I've been calling this A Little Life of Sci-Fi. So like, you are warned. Ooh, okay, the next one is a big one for me, and it is very common again in YA books, but you have the oh so bland girls, but everyone wants her. She's special. She's very much like ugly to pretty. You get it. Shadow and Bone. Okay. I feel like this one is limit. It is limit, but when I read it, I was okay with it, so I'm mentioning it. I do feel like, mild spoiler, I don't feel like it takes anything away, but mild spoiler, essentially the fact that she wasn't using her powers, the reason that she was not pretty. But I also wanted to mention it because of the friend to lover situation happening in this book. I feel like if I compare it to the TV show, which I kind of have to because it's so different, my feelings are completely different. In the book, I freaking hated the romance, the friend to lover situation. I'm not going to name anyone, even though most of you have probably seen the TV show. But in the book, I really didn't like it. But in the TV show, I really was rooting for them. So it goes to show that it can easily change. But in this one, again, the ugly to pretty, the whole chosen one, the whole special girl that every boy wants, it ended up not bothering me, which is really, really strange because I really don't like this trope, but my exception. It's also pretty common in fantasy books to have a reluctant main character. They don't want to save the world, they don't want to fight, they don't want any of it. And it's also mixed for this specific book with the trope of someone learning really quickly to be really good at fighting. Usually a big pet peeve of mine, but The Rage of Dragons. I feel like the explanation for how the main character improves fast makes a lot of sense, so that's solved. And he definitely didn't want to be a superhero. He's not a superhero, a hero. He didn't want to fight, he didn't want to participate in the war. I can't say too much without spoiling it, but this is definitely my exception. You can see a million post-its on this one. I really, really enjoyed this book. I actually need to read book 2 ASAP because I am fascinated with the fantasy elements in here. So yes, if you still haven't picked this up, you need to. Last but not least, I need to mention the book before I can mention the trope because I don't want to spoil it for anyone, even though I don't think it's a big spoiler, but it still needs to be said. So To Be Thought Fortunate by Becky Chambers. I have been very vocal about the fact that this is my favorite book by her, and she is one of my favorite authors. This is a standalone adult sci-fi, and you follow a team that is sent to explore a few different moons and planets on a different solar system to try and find signs of life, signs of if there's one of these that could work for humanity. And the trope, spoiler, is the fact that it contains an open ending, which I have been so vocal lately about how much I hate them because I find that they often come off as lazy, like the author had no idea how to end the book. But this one, it does not feel like that at all. It starts the whole book, I've mentioned very, very often, but it makes sense. If you read nothing else we've sent home, please at least read this. So I feel like it explains why the ending is open. It feels hopeful and it just works. In my opinion, it just works. So very much the exception though, because I usually really, really hate them, but Becky Chambers did it okay. So that's it. These are 10 tropes that I usually hate, but with these, we're okay with that. We're okay with it. Again, let me know in the comment section how you feel about these books. If you have read them, do you think they also work as a trope? And what are tropes that you personally hate? Because I'm planning on doing a part 2. I already have a couple planned, but I have some spots to include some recommendations that might change your mind about other tropes. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thumbs up, subscribe. I will be putting more videos on the screen, including more recommendations. I recently did if you like this, try that. So I would recommend checking that out if you haven't. And I will see you in an upcoming video very soon. Bye.